Welcome to another episode of the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett are back again, and tonight we're joined by T.R. Brooks. How are you doing, Brooks?
Doing well, yeah. Do we do last names here?
Whatever's comfortable for you.
No,
Brooks,
it's good. A lot of my
TR.
students call me Brooks, so it works for me.
I've got some good friends who are Brooks, so that's probably what I favor. But we're glad to have you on. Where are you calling from?
Kuna, Idaho, which is part of the Boise area. So I guess Boise for most purposes.
Nice.
Okay, great. All right. So we start off with, anything leading up to the call, how you ended up in Scotland, your reaction to figuring that out. And then we skip over. We want to know what you've been up to since you got home.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then we'll go back and reminisce a little bit. So start us off with getting the call or leading up to that.
Yeah. So I was about 1 year off of my brother getting home, and he came home kind of a changed person in some ways, not necessarily in a bad ways, but he like mellowed out so profoundly and matured so much that I found it a bit jarring, and it actually put me into a bit of a funk and made me wonder if I wanted to undergo such a process. And so I struggled with that for a while. And add to that, I've just, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. I would say I'm not even a naturally spiritual person. I just, I struggled all through adolescence with what I believed. And I remember, I did all the things, I did seminary, I did institute, I went to EFY. And I remember one day at EFY, towards the end of the week, a speaker said, raise your hand. So, how if you're like making a pitch to someone or, getting someone on board with something, you start with these lead-in yes questions where they're definitely going to say yes. And he said, raise your hand if you've felt the Spirit this week. And I didn't know if I had. And so everyone around me raised their hand, and I suddenly realized I was the only one not raising my hand. And I heard these girls behind me. One of them said, he didn't raise his hand. And the other one said, oh, sad. And I just so yeah, felt very conspicuous. And but I thought, well, I'm gonna do all the things. And but in getting ready for my mission, then I kind of thought, well, at least this feels like the right decision, and I'm gonna do this. And didn't really look back much after that on the mission, and just sort of put all that aside. I saw my friends leaving on missions, and that probably influenced that too. And, I got a job at Raging Waters, the now defunct Salt Lake Water Park.
That's right.
And then I remember I got really tan that summer. And so when I went to go through the temple, prior to a couple of recent changes to how they do the temple, it just felt, again, very conspicuous. But it was a fun, relaxed job, giving me a lot of time to think. And then I got the call and was very surprised because I put down on the forum, totally on board with learning a language. In fact, I'd had 4 years of high school Spanish, and thought for sure I was going to speak Spanish. My brother went to Mexico on a Spanish-speaking mission, and everyone goes on a Spanish-speaking mission. So
that's right.
But in the end, I was just glad to be leaving the country, and maybe most interestingly, it was the same mission my dad had gone to, and so I think he was at least as excited as I was, and it did seem special. It seemed like it happened for a reason, and so I was pretty quickly really on board with going to Scotland.
I love it.
Yeah.
When did you serve? What years?
So I left in left September 4th of 2001. A few days before
Oh wow.
a significant date. I can say more about that in a bit, but
Yeah.
and then I was there through I think that toward the end of September of 2003.
Okay.
Cool.
So you and I just missed each
looking
other
down.
by
I wrote
a
some
few
notes. Just looking down at them once in a while, but
No problem. This is an open book test for
That's
sure.
right.
All right. Well, take us to September 2003. What have you been up to the last 21 years almost?
gosh, when you say it like that, yeah, it's kind of significant. It's been as long since my mission as it almost exactly as it was, from being born to the end of my mission.
Yeah.
I just turned 42, and I guess my 21-year/23-year anniversary is coming up a couple months.
Yeah. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I got home at the end of September, which is not great for the academic calendar, because the plan was to go back to college at the University of Utah, where I had done 1 year before going out. And so I was left to kind of spin my wheels for a bit after coming home. I remember, though, just loving being alone, being able to be alone. I would get in my car and just drive nowhere for half a day and just revel in not having anyone with me. Went to a singles ward. Actually, it was a branch, Poppy Lane branch. I remember was in Sandy, Utah. I remember our branch president was Charles Dahlquist, who later would become the young men's general president or something.
Yeah, that's correct. He was
Yeah.
actually the stake president in my stake when I grew up, where I grew
Oh,
up
yeah?
in Sandy. So I know President Dahlquist really well.
Yeah. And yeah, what happened after that? I feel like it took me some time to find my feet. Then January came and I got back in classes and kind of knew what to do with myself more then. I also worked at the U of U. First, I was a janitor at the bookstore, which was nice, peaceful work. And then later I worked at the union building, the student union, at the information desk. And that was fun. I felt really connected to the whole campus because, we would get all kinds of questions and find out all kinds of things about what's going on campus and how to do things. And I kept that job, and then became a building manager for the union building. I did that all through the rest of college.
Nice.
The only person I know who changed from a major to undeclared. So I was a music major and just thought this is too much work for what's going to probably not be very steady work afterwards. And so I switched to undeclared, and then took a psychology class, found myself reading the textbook for fun, found myself procrastinating my other classes by reading psychology stuff, and thought I should probably do this. And so I did. I wasn't very good at dating. I think I was very timid, and I didn't date much in college. I was social. I hung out a lot, and it wasn't until I finally moved out of my parents' house at age, 24, 25, that I really started dating more. Didn't have much success when I did start dating more. I don't think I dated anyone more than a few months until I got married much later, age 28. Graduated from the University of Utah, and then I worked in a series of, I would call them outdoor and tourism and travel related jobs. So first, for those youth wilderness programs that are all over Utah that sometimes show up in the press with unflattering headlines. And that was a mixed bag. At first, it just was totally on board, and it seemed like just such good, worthwhile work. And then I got a little disillusioned with it. I started recognizing how profit driven it was, how a lot of kind of unethical practices were getting swept under the rug. And I probably shouldn't say the names of any of the companies I worked for because I don't want to get sued or anything. But but I also, it was great to be outside. I saw every beautiful place in Utah, it seems like, and there were some great people working there, including my now wife. I met working at one of them, and after that, I worked in Alaska. I was a tour guide for this company that's up in the Arctic, in the interior. I did float tours and driving tours and walking tours.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was great. It was so, and I should add, through these years after college, I was applying to graduate school in psychology. I wanted to be an academic. I wanted to be a professor, and I kept not getting in. And but in the meantime, I lived my life. I did these cool jobs and had a lot of fun, even though it was lonely at times. You uproot yourself every few months and go off to the next thing. So after Alaska, I was like, I kind of want to settle down a little. And so I worked closer to home at Alta Ski Resort. I was a ski instructor. And the other job, I had two jobs at Alta. One was trainee ski instructor, and the other was, it's called Fun Patrol.
Fun Patrol.
What it really was is you go up on the beginner lift and rescue people who've gotten in over their head without having to call in the cavalry. So you ski up to someone who looks unhappy and you say, hey, they help you out. What's happened is that their friend has brought them skiing and brought them to the top of the lift and said, all right, see you at the bottom, and dished them. And
Jeez.
They don't know how to ski yet, or not well enough to get themselves down. So we give them a little impromptu lesson and get them down. It was fun. Pay was terrible. Cool. I got to ski a lot.
That is actually my nightmare, and the reason why I've never gone skiing is because someone would do exactly that to me.
Oh no! You needed the Fun Patrol, it seems.
Yeah,
clearly. I didn't know that was a thing, that someone would come along and make sure I had a good experience. Otherwise, I might have tried.
Yeah,
that's why I only went once, is because there was no Fun Patrol to keep me going. So.
There you go.
So through all that, I was after I moved out, I was in a student ward at the U of U, and I will say I had some great bishops in those wards. One in particular was Kevin Glade, who's, I think he's an attorney in Salt Lake. I don't know if he's retired or not. Just one of the best people I've ever met. And then after him was I forget his middle initial, but it's Thomas Monson.
S.
Yeah. Was it Thomas S? Who's the
prophet?
Who's the president? Thomas R or Thomas? One of them was R and one of them was S.
Thomas S.
Who's that? Okay, so I think Thomas, what was his son's middle initial? I can't remember, but it was his son, and also named Thomas. Nice. He was really into pigeons. And I remember he would say wacky things over the pulpit. You didn't know what to think. Colorful personality. I can only imagine it'd be really hard to be the church president's son with his almost same name.
Yeah.
So I met my now wife at one of these wilderness programs. We dated for about 1 year before getting engaged, married about 3 months after that. Around that time, I quit the next wilderness program I was working at and went to work at a boarding school, a therapeutic boarding school, as a night watch kind of person. Graveyard's kind of hard. Meanwhile, I'm still failing to get into grad school, but I'm taking I'm taking non-matriculated courses so that when I do get in, I've got those credits. We get engaged. So my wife, Ari, comes also to work at the boarding school. At this point, we're engaged and working in the same place. We get married, and then she gets into grad school, and she goes to grad school at the University of Utah, earns her MSW and becomes a therapist. And then finally I get into grad school, but in Connecticut. So
oh, wow.
we sell all of our things and move to Connecticut. It's challenging to move across the country. And we got through it. It took 6 years. And in the meantime, we had a kid, and we're expecting a second. And then I got a job at the College of Idaho, where I now work as an assistant professor of psychology, which means I haven't gotten tenure yet. And I'm up for tenure this fall, so I'm hoping to get tenure and become an associate professor. So I mostly teach, but I also do research in sensory perception, mostly vision perception and touch perception. I study illusions, and I study how it is we pick things up with our hands, and we can know things about them just by how they feel in our hands without necessarily having to look at them.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's a very, very niche area, but it's fun. I get to build contraptions, and because I'm at a primarily teaching institution, it means I'm not expected to court a bunch of big grants, and I can just kind of study what I want, anything that seems interesting or worthwhile.
Cool.
That's awesome.
That's great.
And you said
And-
you had a couple kids, or one on the way?
I had one on the way when I graduated
Okay.
in 2018, but now I have a 7-year-old boy, 5-year-old girl. What can I say? They're wonderful. They're silly.
That's awesome.
Being a parent's incredibly hard. I love them. All the things you hear. They're all true. You could make any statement about having kids. You could make literally any statement about having kids, and it would be true, I think.
It's true. They bring all the variables.
Yeah. And these days I like to, my wife's a mental health therapist, and she's seems to be very good at it. Gets a lot of kind of acclaim and recognition in the community. And we like to do stuff outside, backpacking. I hunt mushrooms.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I love it.
That's great. So now let's go back September 2001, just before 9/11, man. That's kind of wild in itself, but
yeah.
walk us through, we'll start at MTC. You can just talk
Sure.
about companions, areas, however you want to cover it. This is your story. So
Great. And
Fire away.
can I just ask, how long do you like to go? I don't want to.
No longer than 6 hours, but we average about 90 minutes. But it's really whatever
All right.
whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
No, that gives me an idea of how detailed to be at the beginning, so I don't run out of time and not mention the second half of my mission or anything.
We don't cap it. If we need to, we'll do a part 2 or whatever. Like we just want to hear your experience.
No, don't do that to your listeners. All right.
We'll say the caveat in the middle. Well, Ed, coming up next week. I'm just kidding.
Year 2 of TR Brooks.
I think we'll be good.
Yeah, it should be okay. So I just want to start with the day before I left, because it just sticks in my memory a lot. It's just seemed really substantial to me, where my parents basically said, "We can do anything you want." The subtext being with us, as long as it's with the family. So I chose disc golf. We went disc golfing. I probably did badly. I've been disc golfing many, many times. I just never get any better, and I keep going. And then
It's like regular golf for some of us, anyway.
yeah, I have only ever golfed in Scotland. So if you're going to golf anywhere, so I actually had a good experience, maybe because it was in Scotland.
That's cool. I love that.
So then we went to 2 movies. I was like, this is something I'm not going to be allowed to do. And the mission, I know you sometimes get to watch movies. You don't get to go to the movie theater.
Yeah.
Or you're not supposed to. And I remember we saw Planet of the Apes, the 2001 version, and a documentary on Ernest Shackleton, who I was really into at the time, still into. He's an Antarctic explorer,
Nice.
and was filmed. Part of it was filmed at Raging Waters in a wave pool.
Oh, really?
It makes it sound like a really ragtag, low budget thing, but I mean, they only used it to like show some floating ice and or something. I remember seeing the scene and thinking that's probably the wave pool, and maybe it may have been Seven Peaks. I can't remember. It was in Utah. I was a Utah director. Anyway, plane ride. I don't remember being sad. I remember just kind of being a little apprehensive, but feeling pretty much at peace. And then, wouldn't you know it, on the plane ride over, I had a chat with the person next to me. Didn't know the first discussion yet, but gave her kind of what I thought might be in the first discussion, and thought, wow, this is going to be nonstop teaching all the time, this mission, because it had been for the first day. The MTC I really liked. It was the Preston MTC. I remember stepping off the plane and the customs and border person having an English accent, which shouldn't have surprised me. But I didn't think ahead about it, and just found it really charming. And the MTC, I assume you both went to Preston, based on the age you appear to be. What years were you in Scotland? I should ask.
Well, I got there just a few months after you left. I started February 04.
All right.
And then Zach followed me by a year to January 05.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we
Not,
just missed
not too far past your era there.
Yeah. So it was not the MTC, it's beautiful, it's green, it's isolated, it's quiet, it's peaceful. It's not the sweaty, itchy combination of a frat house and EFY dorm that I was expecting. That you hear about from people who went to Provo.
Yeah.
And I quite liked it. We played football, soccer. I remember they let me go running around the track for one of the days, and I did want to spend more time outside. It was just so nice outside there, and we were just inside reading and memorizing all day, every day. So I did get a little bit of cabin fever, but I liked the food. I don't know if that's a popular sentiment on this podcast, but we ate exotic foods like Yorkshire pudding and
That's right.
of course, spotted dick. And my companion was a German fellow headed to Leeds. I remember his name was Tobias Herber, but he pronounced it Tobias. And he's really nice, good fellow. Anyway, 5 days after I got there, it was 9/11, and I was at ASDA at the time. I think they let us go to ASDA like once in a while, or maybe once at the
Yeah, it was
MTC.
like a field trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was at ASDA, and some rando walked up to me and said, "I'm so sorry to hear what happened in your country." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I haven't heard anything. What? And hearing kind of their very filtered, preliminary, low information version of what was happening, and not knowing what to think. We got back to the MTC, and the MTC president, whose name I forget, but I remember he could have been cast as like a military general in a 1950s war movie, and he decided that the best thing to do would be to sort of have a fireside, it's the wrong word, but have a family meeting or whatever about it, to talk about it, and to show us the footage. So he turned on the TV and played footage of the news coverage, so we could see the images, know that it was real, really face it. And I appreciate that. It would have been, I think, too easy to just say this is going to distract them, or to give them minimal info and tell them everything's fine. And to jump ahead just a little, a few weeks later, when I would be in Aberdeen, I remember when they launched the missiles into Afghanistan, and on the one hand, really appreciating the solidarity I saw um, among the Scottish people. I remember the Sun or some newspaper printed a full page American flag, and it said like, "Put this in your window to show solidarity." At the same time, being disturbed by the sort of glee a lot of people seem to have with the bombing itself, and the violence. Um, and then learning from my parents and family through letters that the vibe was um, just so much different and more amplified in the U.S. with people thinking the world was ending, but also people being really charitable with each other, and for maybe too brief a period of time, but there just being a lot of solidarity and generosity in the aftermath. And for people in Britain, it was huge news and it was on people's minds, but it didn't transform society temporarily the way it did in the US. And so when people in the US now talk about the period right after 9/11, I always have trouble relating because I wasn't there.
Yeah, that'd be hard.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought that the MTC felt like an old movie. Like I talk a lot about movies. I like movies. Chariots of Fire. I don't know if you've seen Chariots of Fire or any number of like movies set at like a mid-century elite prep school. It just kind of felt that way to me. Isolated, insular, but peaceful, and you can focus on studying and so on.
Mm-hmm.
At the MTC, I met Russell M. Nelson for the first of what you might say is 3 times. I remember years later, I'd meet him at an institute fireside. I'd be told, "We have a general authority coming," and then saying, "It's going to be Russell M. Nelson," and being a little disappointed just because it's like, "Oh, I've already met that one. I want to meet a different one." And then after that, being working at Alta, the ski resort, and one day I found myself filling in as a gate checker, so you see who's coming through the gates. And Alta at the time offered a season pass for like some insanely low price, like $20 or something, if you're over 80. And so Russell M. Nelson came through the gate. His name came up on my scanner, said Russell Nelson. I couldn't see him very well, his face covered, but he was tall. Things said he was 80 something. And it's been like, oh, wow. 3rd time. And cool. I've still never met any other general authorities. It's always Russell M. Nelson.
That's cool.
Anyway, I got to Edinburgh to check in at the mission home, met Randy Wilkinson, heard about his son Tyler, which I learned about from this church video that used to get passed around, who had a debilitating accident and made the most of the situation. Basically, it's an inspirational video, and feeling like oh, this is a celebrity mission president kind of.
Yeah.
We stayed in the Airbnb the first night. I remember I forgot my garments in Airbnb, the bed and breakfast, which was not owned by a member, and who ran up to the car afterwards like, "Hey, one of you left your vest and your pants." And I remember thinking, first of all, is that what we call those here? And I had to be like, "That's mine," and just being really mortified.
Oh boy.
But you can't beat Edinburgh. Castle on a cliff in the middle of the city, just stunning. We did I can't think of the name of the hill. Arthur's Seat. Pratt's Hill. I remember seeing a big black slug and just thinking, I've never seen such a big black slug before. It's funny the stuff you remember.
Yeah. Love it.
I got assigned to Aberdeen. It was my first area. beautiful in its own way. It isn't stunning in the way that Edinburgh is, but it's got those uniform granite buildings, the gray buildings and the gray streets and the gray sky all kind of have a collective effect that's some to the untrained eye might be called drab. I thought it was just kind of had this stark beauty in its own way. I really, really liked Aberdeen. And sometimes I remember the sunsets on like these parks, these ice covered parks were just like so bleak, but also so beautiful. I liked playing soccer. That was maybe the highlight of my week. I get antsy if I hold still. And so I really liked that. I liked walking, preferred it to the bus. What else do I have here in my notes? Aberdonians are nice. They were a little more reserved, I think, than others I met, but just really understated, nice people. My companion, Brock Hansen, just a great, big-hearted, generous person, patient with me, tended to see the best in people. I really liked my time with him. He was just, I think, the perfect person for me to have as my first companion. And he's from Richfield. I don't think you've had him on. I would be curious to know what he's up to, although I see his very occasional updates on social media. I think
we'll track him down.
Selling cars or something. I can't remember. Owned a car dealership, maybe. The ward was good. There was the, obligatory Mormon or obligatory American bishop. It's a phenomenon I encountered several times in Scotland. Whole ward of Scottish people with an American bishop, or in one case, a German bishop. I remember one member, Tommy Thompson. He was very old at the time. It's highly unlikely he's still alive. But you're nodding.
He's a legend of the Aberdeen ward.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Yeah. So he, just you look at him, he just looks fierce. It's like, this is a guy I don't want to be on his bad side. Of course, very nice, if very direct as well. And I remember learning he was a former leader or chairman of the Aberdeen Communist Party decades ago, and just loving that about him, because it's it just seemed like someone who was so when he goes for something, he does it all the way. And then there was Sister Mitchell. I don't remember her first name. Also very old.
Maureen.
Was it Maureen?
I believe so, yeah.
Not a missionary. Sorry. This was a member of the ward.
Yeah. I think I have her
Christina?
name. Christine.
Christine. Okay, yeah.
I was trying to peek it out of my brain, but yes, carry on.
I'm so delighted that you were in Aberdeen as well, and it's really helpful for me remembering this stuff.
Yeah.
But she had, maybe others have mentioned on the podcast, these famous, perhaps infamous dishes. I really liked them. There was missionary pizza, which was, I think, a freezer pizza with everything on it. And it changed every week. Sometimes there were fries on it. Sometimes there were Brussels sprouts on it. You just never knew what you were getting. And there was missionary pie, which was shepherd's pie with, you never know what's going to be in it. And but I always really liked it. I liked her. She was maybe the quintessential Scot. She was opinionated, could be direct, but also incredibly generous and forgiving.
Yeah. I ate at her house once a week for 6 months, TR.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what we're talking about. Our experiences there were so memorable. She was just, like you said, very quintessential Scottish woman that just loved having the missionaries visit her in her home, which I'm grateful to be one of those. So thanks for bringing her name up to the podcast. I don't think anybody really has mentioned it up to this point.
That surprises me.
Pretty surprising, but she's amazing.
Yeah, she is. And then the tin of biscuits at the end where we'd eat too many, and um, we'd eat all the good ones and leave the club biscuits. The club ones were like a. Do you remember the club biscuits? Those
Oh,
were
yeah.
like a joke
Oh
for
yeah.
us.
Like
Fortunately, there were
it was like
lots of
wallboard graham cracker, right?
yeah, with some like layer of like fruit jelly that was
Yeah. Oh
too
yeah.
too firm or something. I can't remember.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
I remember feeling very lonely. My first area, just getting used to, and it was this uneasy feeling of always being with someone and also being lonely a lot, and that was a challenge for me. We didn't have a lot of success. We had the investigators that are really nice and want to be your friends, but don't really want to get baptized. And there was a South African family we taught there that we really liked. Um, I remember one of them was like this guy who just it's like a big, tall bodybuilder type, but with a really soft voice, really kind demeanor, and would just say yes to everything. He'd be like, "Yeah, I want to go to church. Yes, I want to. I'll totally read the Book of Mormon." And then we'd go visit and be like, "I screwed up, you guys. I snorted a whole bunch of cocaine over the weekend." And like, maybe that goes with kind of just being up for things, the same enthusiasm. Yeah, I'll totally read the Book of Mormon. Yes, I'll totally go to church. I definitely want to do a bunch of cocaine this weekend. So,
Oh man.
my first Guy Fawkes night was in Aberdeen. I remember thinking it was like there was a war happening. Really cool, really disorienting. And then, the burning of the garbage cans. You can burn the black ones to get high. You don't want to burn the green one. You can burn the green ones; they'll burn just fine, but they won't get you high. They're a different kind of plastic
Oh
or something.
Jeez.
And you'd see like the melted remains of a wheelie bin in the park, after a weekend. There were other missionaries in Bridge of Dawn that we interacted with. Once we both left our keys behind and somehow locked ourselves out of the flat, and so we had to go spend the night there. Another time we stayed there because of we said it was because of a conference. It was not necessary, but we wanted to. So we said, "Oh, we need to stay here because of the conference." And pint uno. Do those words mean anything to you? Okay, you're both nodding.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
For anyone else, pint uno is almost certainly a drinking game. Most people do with beer, but we did it with water. And instead of first one to puke or pass out, it's the first one who has to pee. And I'm hesitant to say this next part. I won't give names.
You have to say it though, TR.
I do.
Just
yeah.
tell us.
I'll say the names of people involved, but I won't say who did what. So we were. I remember there was one missionary, Wesley Bunis, English. What a personality. Be very fascinated to hear what he's up to. But kind of like this investigator, up for stuff, willing. He was someone who would say yes to stuff, and Elder Hansen, and then one other missionary, I can't remember his name. He came out with the moves after me. He was from Texas, is all I remember. The penalty for losing this game of Pine Uno was going to be you had to run naked from the flat to the end of the road, around the lamp pole, and back. And
in the winter?
Yeah, it would have been winter.
My gosh.
It also would have been like pretty late at night at this point, so there's not going to be a lot of people up. In retrospect, like the kind of thing I'm at the time was very introverted and mortified at the thought of having to do it. But even more mortified at the kind of moral dilemma of like, this is not quiet dignity, but also, what if you got caught? You could get an area closed,
Yeah.
So, and if that was going to happen, I didn't want to be the one who did it. So I've never focused so hard on a card game in my life, and did very well. I only lost 1 out of 14 rounds. I think 14 pints of water were drunk before I even had one. And
Wow.
someone else lost, and someone else had to do the thing and did it. And it happened.
Is there photographic evidence of said act? Yes, he's gonna dig it out.
I think you know what this is.
He's got the tea book.
This is the tea book. And I'm just going to check the photo before I show it, because I'm pretty sure it's from the back. And also, there was a crackdown on tea books during my tenure in Scotland, where we were told to get rid of them, not do them anymore. If you do have a journal, you can have your companion write his testimony in your journal. Don't do wild photos or a bunch of jokes. And so, yeah, okay, this is properly anonymized. So my compromise was I would go through, and anything dodgy, I would edit. I would put some kind of thing over it. And so what I have here for your audio listeners, and I'll show Jack and Zach, is a missionary who I won't name. Hopefully I didn't just show it on this page. No, I think we're good. And you've got a back view of someone running away, but except I've cut out a pair of like denim overalls and stuck them on the back of him. And so it looks like a man wearing denim overalls, but shirtless, sprinting away from the camera. But if I were to peel up this piece of tape and the edit I made, should I do that right now? I think I will.
Yes.
You'd see some bare buttocks outdoors in Aberdeen in the winter. I hope I don't tear the photo.
Boy.
Oh, it seems to be going well. And yeah, there are the butt cheeks. I don't know. I'll follow your lead on this. Do I show the unedited photo? No. Okay.
You're good.
I won't.
We'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
fantastic.
That's
though,
wise.
that you have the evidence. I love it.
It's going to be great audio listening for.
Yes.
Just flipping through my Aberdeen period, make sure I don't miss anything. We just had some great folks come through that area, some great missionaries. We had Thanksgiving dinner at the house of a missionary couple named the Smedleys, who were just really sweet people. See, I've got an entry from Kristen Kerr. I forget her married name. I'm still connected to her on social media. There's an Elder Reynolds. What was his name? Was it Zach? Was it? No. It was, that'll come to me in a minute. Adam Reynolds from Manchester. Anything else for Aberdeen? Man, letters. If I didn't get a letter one week, that was a sad week. I remember one week Elder Hansen got 7 letters, and I wrote in my journal, Elder Hansen got 7 letters, and he's probably going to complain tomorrow if he doesn't get one tomorrow.
Hey, Post was a big deal.
Oh, man.
Gosh.
Turn your whole day around.
It's true. Very true.
Yeah.
And you know, I can't help but think we've lost something in switching over to email. You know, nothing like opening a handwritten letter from someone. I still have all my letters that I got on my whole mission.
Even the anticipation of not knowing exactly when it's going to come, and
yeah, right.
How delayed your news is.
Hearing the postie walk up the steps and then not put anything through your slot. Was like, no.
You can hear the door flap go or not.
Yep.
Oh man.
Elder Hansen was transferred, and my next companion, I decided not to name just because we didn't spend very long together. I found it a very challenging period, and I'll just say he didn't have a need to talk to me almost at all. And I don't think he was being mean. I just think was just a little unusual in that way. And it was a very hard period for me. He did like pranks, And one time one of them went wrong and I got an injury on my head. Um,
Oh boy.
there was
What
another,
kind?
it's just a little laceration.
Oh my gosh.
I totally forgot about it. So I read it in my journal like 2 days ago in prepping for this. So I don't think it was that bad if I totally forgot about it. And there was another prank. I don't know how much to say again. It's known as the fruit basket. That's all I'll say. People are welcome to Google it.
Jeez.
I'll just say I saw more nudity on my mission than I expected.
That's probably true for all of us. For
Yeah.
various reasons.
Yeah. Maybe that's the price that was like balances out not having the Tree of Life shower at the MTC.
Maybe.
Jeez.
I wonder, I'm getting too jargony. The Tree of Life shower is the kind of shared shower with multiple heads, so you all have to kind of stand facing each other. I'm told. I've never seen it. It's in the Provo MTC, which I didn't go to.
We all, you're like all of us, TR, as we're listening to this. Some people that'll listen will have gone to the Provo MTC and know what you're talking about, where
okay.
Those of us who went to Preston got the coziness of our own little banquettes with doors and privacy.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, big difference.
Yeah, we got the better end of the deal, I think.
I agreed to that. Yep.
Next, I went to Perth, or Perth, and just visually very beautiful, iconic city. You know, it's right on the River Tay. I'm trying to remember what the main kind of grassy commons area in the middle. It's something the Inch or something. The big park in the middle of the city, just beautiful. We would go walk, and I think we even went on some runs around the Inch. And curling capital of the world, so they make curling stones there. They had a cool park that had all these sculptures. They had this beautiful hillside that we would go hiking on called Knoll Hill. The geography and the architecture and everything I loved. And I remember our flat was on a street called Flesher's Vennel, which to date is the best street name I've ever heard.
That's good.
Even though the location turned out to be not great. A Vennel, if you don't know, is like a really, really narrow alleyway. And right on the other side of it was this noisy pub. And we would hear screaming and profanities and breaking glass on weekends. And sometimes it was scary. And I remember one night we heard like a domestic violence situation next door in our flat. A drunk guy pounding on the door, screaming at his partner to let him in. Or else. And, at the time we didn't have the sense to call the police, which we should have. Just kind of shivered under our blankets in our room, hoping it wouldn't spill over into our flat at all. And so when they closed half of Perth, or they combined two areas in Perth while I was there, that was the flat we got rid of and went instead to the other flat. My companion there was Robert Nye, gentle fellow, introverted, loved the dad jokes, loved to recycle the dad jokes. And I say this with love. I love that about him. I feel a little bad. He was very easy to tease, and maybe we went too far, including taking him snipe hunting, which he had never done before. So maybe he was a good sport about it. I hope we were kind about it. I do have some regrets with the teasing. The branch was small, kind of dangerously small. Like, is this branch going to still be here in a couple of weeks? Kind of small. They would, bring in ringers from other units. The branch president did not live in the boundaries of the branch. Fastened testimony meeting was could be very strained, in addition to there just not being enough people to keep the momentum of the meeting going. Sometimes the people who would get up would say stuff that was very kind of confrontational and contentious and like honest, it's what they're feeling, but they would talk about how there's too much backbiting in the unit, and how they would come more often if people were nicer, and or other people talking like, I have a real problem with this doctrine, I don't know what to make of it, and I don't think it, I think it's wrong, and then sit down.
Well,
That's a nightmare as a missionary when you have an investigator or someone that you didn't anticipate showing up to church. And
yeah, fortunately that never happened for us.
Testimony meeting is just one that you want to not invite people to church that week.
Yeah,
I think it was a roll of the dice, no matter what size unit you were in. Actually.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yep.
Sometimes it's the very committed, zealous folks who say stuff that you have to kind of debrief with your investigator about afterwards.
That's right. Oh boy.
The Jehovah's Witnesses, there were so many in Perth. I think there's some kind of center there, some kind of local headquarters or something, but multiple Kingdom halls. We ran into them everywhere. They had a big convention right by our flat while I was there. And, like any group, they're a mixed bag. Some of them were just insufferable. Others were wonderful. And for whatever reason, I can't remember what our thought process was here, but we decided to attend a Jehovah's Witness service, just show up, name tags and everything. And it was fascinating. It felt a little awkward. People were nice, if a little trepidatious afterwards. And then we left and nothing ever, that was it. It was just kind of this singular experience. Next I had Joshua McNee from Yorkshire. I think he's from Keighley in Yorkshire. And he this was when I became a senior companion and I trained him. So he was a greenie. Great person, calm, unflappable, unassuming, forgiving, just easy to be with. And I remember we went shopping once, and when we met back up at the flat, he said, "Hey, I thought we could make these for dinner on Sunday since we don't have an appointment." And he held up a box of like old El Paso, like an old El Paso fajitas kit. And he's like, "I thought we could try these fajitas." I was like, is that what they call them here? Or have you just never heard that word before? But they were good. The thing I missed most was Mexican food, I think. You could get peanut butter, you could get root beer. Good Mexican food was tricky to find.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had a friend on his mission in West Virginia that had a bad Mexican experience, and he said, if the Mexican gets worse the further away you get away from it, don't touch it if you're in the UK.
Yeah.
Very true.
Although I just got back from Canada and had some great killer Mexican food in Canada. So
cool.
Maybe there's some exceptions, some islands of great Mexican food.
Yeah.
There you go.
So Perth, I'm gonna speed up a little here. I'm noticing we're rounding out to 9 o'clock now, and
you're good. Take your time, TR.
All right. Well, some notable things happened in Perth. First, as I mentioned, they combined the areas, and so we were 4 missionaries staying in one flat. In that flat were a couple of colorful fellows. Gary Whistlecraft. I can't remember where he's from. He's from England, but I can't remember where in England. And I think his name was Jonathan Erickson. He's someone who I really regret not being in contact with. I really liked him. But those two, man, they were quite a team. They loved pranks. They loved wackiness. They had a car. And I remember Gary Whistlecraft liked to accessorize the mission car. So he bought new hubcaps and spray painted them gold. He got this like tape of gold trim. Not the image you necessarily associate with missionaries.
Or a
But
box
it's not
of
like-
horses.
Yeah, right. It's not like we were teaching much anyway, so maybe it didn't matter. All right, here's another story. I think I had one kind of scandal in each area. So we got, all right, so as I mentioned, I was an introvert at the time. I'm not someone who instigates these things. But if you want to do it, I'll hold the flashlight for you. I'll be saying, like, I don't know about this, guys, but I will totally stick around and want to see it happen. So this other flat is on this road that connects a club called I think it's called the Ice House, and I think it actually used to be an ice house with the downtown. And so on the weekends, we'd get this string of club goers coming home drunk, feeling silly, stumbling past our flat, which was, I think, on the second or third floor. And we thought, wouldn't it be funny? I didn't think this. Someone else. Wouldn't it be funny if we dropped things from the window as people walked past? They'd be so confused. And that turned into, what if we drop things on them? Surely we won't hit anyone. And they weren't dangerous things. I want to emphasize, they were like Ziploc bags of water. So a confusing and maybe mean-spirited prank, but not dangerous necessarily. And then I think I say we, again, I was watching. I didn't drop any of them. There was like I don't know why they had pancake batter in the fridge, but they made a Ziploc bag of pancake batter. And one of the people present, and I won't say who, I will say it wasn't me, deployed that one. And the next thing I heard from the street below was the bag bursting and then a profanity. And then screams of rage. And I thought, oh, we might be in danger. They might run up the staircase. They might be able to tell which unit it is and pound on the door. And that didn't happen, but made for a great story, I guess. It's definitely something we shouldn't have done. I actually do feel bad about it still. It's really mean. But what good is it if no one knows about it, right? We can at least tell the story, I guess.
Yeah, we'll just call out your companion, Elder McNee, Elder Whistlecraft, and Elder Erickson to come on the podcast and tell us their side of the story.
Elders, sure, absolutely, yeah.
We'd love to hear it.
I will add, to give all of them an out if they want it. We had other missionaries stay there too. I think we had as many as 6 people come stay one night, and there was silliness on some of those nights too. So it may or may not have been one of the 4 I mentioned. I'll say that.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, then one of the 4 had to go home for medical treatment, and so we were a threesome, which was really weird. First of all, it was really intimidating to people. I felt like 3 guys at your door. Like, that's a lot of guys. It did mean we could visit people that we wouldn't necessarily been able to otherwise.
How long were you a trio, and who was your trio mate?
I don't want to say, just because I don't want to reveal who had medical treatment. I don't know. It's just
okay, that's fair.
But it was people I've met. It was made up of people I've mentioned. It was a short period, maybe 2 weeks. Anyways, next
finishing out the transfer there.
Yeah. Next, I went to Coatbridge and Airdrie. First, it was just Coatbridge, and then they combined my area with Airdrie. And then a scandal happened in Perth after I left, which you may have heard of. I don't know all the details. No? Oh,
I don't remember.
This is a lot of pressure. It resulted in Perth getting closed. It involved legal action and a missionary. And I'll say it's someone I didn't know. So hopefully that absolves me enough. Was accused of, and I make no, like, I only have secondhand info, so I won't opine on whether it happened or what the nature of it was, but was accused of flashing himself from that same apartment, from the window. I'll say accused of flashing himself and more. And the police were called. The area was closed. There was a newspaper article.
I
And
think they
for a while,
buried that story, TR. I don't remember that one.
oh man, I'm kicking a hornet's nest here. I'm worried, but anyway,
That's good to know, though.
it
'cause
makes what we did. It
sense.
makes what we did look. I say we. I didn't do it again. It makes what I witnessed seem pretty harmless by comparison. I guess I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is terrible. I'm realizing, like, in a lot of these stories, I just kind of allowing it to happen. I feel bad. It's bringing up some feelings for me. And I mentioned, I was pleased to find the MTC wasn't a frat house, but apparently sometimes the missionary flats were. What do you do, though? I mean, how do you show quiet dignity for 2 solid years? It's not easy. I think most of us have moments where we have where we let it out a little.
We definitely look back and realize, like, man, that's a lot of teenage boys running around.
Yeah, right. I
home.
mean, in fairness, we're just barely adults legally, and yeah, where they put us all together in a flat,
They did pretty much do away with that by the time Zach and I got there.
Oh, is that right? No shared flat.
One set to a flat.
I would have been annoyed if it happened while I was there, but in looking back, I think it was the right move. Anyway, Coatbridge and Airdrie. It's Coatbridge is not scenic. It's industrial Glasgow. It's parts of it are run down. There's some nice parts, but it's maybe the most iconic in my memory for Scotland, just because I spent so long there. I spent 6 months there, longer than any other area, and I may have spent 6 months in Perth. I don't remember, but also the only area where I really had any success proselytizing, thanks to a media referral, which were new when I got there. Media referrals were new. There was some law that changed in Britain right before, and the church was now able to do kinds of advertisements that they weren't previously. And it's the first time I ever saw someone answer the door, like, very, very, very obviously on drugs, drooling, foaming at the mouth, kind of standing almost off balance and unable to speak clearly. I had a variety of things thrown at me in Coatbridge, which I started to collect. One was a whiskey bottle which shattered, so I couldn't collect that because it was, a piece of broken glass. But I also had a AA battery and a ceramic drawer pull, a little handle for a drawer. So I had this little collection of them.
Oh my god. Oh boy.
My companion there was Elder Mannon. He's a great fellow. We had personalities that tended to grate on each other a little bit. I feel bad. At one point, I kind of criticized him for being really withdrawn and moody. And then I found out he'd gotten some bad news from home and just was processing it and, wanted to keep it to himself. But here I am bugging him about it. And we left on good terms. One thing great about being with Elder Mann is he's very intimidating. He's tall, just kind of solidly built. And so there's a little less fear of kind of getting mugged or whatever with him. All right. Next I had Elder Lovelace. Interesting time. He was fun. He was charismatic. He was bold. He was confident. I just learned a lot from him. He would just say things to people that I knew I was supposed to say, but never did. And he would ask for things that he wanted or needed. in a really direct way. And I remember he put together this musical fireside, which when he first mentioned it to me, I thought was just sounded like the members would never get on board with it, and it would be such a pain to set up, and no one would show up. And he just told people like, "Hey, I need speakers up on stands. Who has them? Find them in the ward. We need them for this." And it was great. It turned out great. He reminds me of just how in my mind Joseph Smith is, which is willing to just say things very directly to people, but also just so incredibly extroverted that it could it can be a two-edged sword. You get when he's working through something, he brings you into it, and you're working through it with him, whether you want to or not. And so, but I learned so much from him. I'm still in touch with him. Just what a great person to know and to have spent time with.
I love it.
The Harrises were a family I met, and the Marion Harris joined the church. Then her son joined the church. I think he lives in Arizona now. Just wonderful people, just really sweet and kind people. And also a missionary named Ben Langley, who I found really impressive. So a thing I think a lot of missionaries experience is they experiment with different ways of doing missionary work. So on the one hand, you can maximize your numbers. And I even have some visuals here, which I'll describe for the audio listeners. We have these goal sheets. And I unfortunately don't have any bubble charts. Did you have bubble charts? They were like these little, they're like little histograms kind of that you fill out with. I taught this many lessons, so I'm going to fill in a bubble, I'm going to fill in another bubble, but you fill them out at the beginning of the week, and you make like empty circles, and you have to color them in each time you get one. So you have this very visual reminder of your goal. And that was a hard thing for me, the corporate salesman type culture of a mission. Not natural for me, and frankly disillusioning for me. You like to think it's all done through miracles and so on, but seeing how the sausage is made can be hard on someone, I think. And so you experiment with maximizing your numbers, and it looks great on your goal sheets, and you end up being maybe dishonest or disingenuous, counting something as a discussion that wasn't, kind of maybe even using people to boost your numbers when you know that that it's a dead end. And so I did that at times, maximize the numbers. At other times, I tried to be more honest, have more integrity, and report more accurately, even if the numbers weren't impressive. And Ben Langley was someone who just would have none of that. He would just visit people and just listen to them, be compassionate, and had no interest in impressing anyone with numbers. And really inspirational. I think he's a exceptional person. Wow. The Dohertys as a family in Coatbridge, super generous with us. They were like family to us, and also, very good about keeping in touch after the mission. Much better than me, and I think as missionaries, you feel entitled. Sometimes you're on God's errand, and so anything you do is right. Anything someone gives you is like, yeah, you should give me that. I'm doing this work, and so I didn't appreciate the full extent of their generosity while I was there. Just wonderful folks. Just going to go quickly now. Paisley, zone leader area. I became a zone leader. Sith Elder Shanoff, who I think would be the first, what was his name? Clint with a K, Shanoff. And Shanoff is spelled very oddly. I don't know if you've encountered this name. It's
I haven't heard that one.
You haven't heard it, so you don't know this person. So I noticed you writing something every time I mention a name. So if you're
Absolutely.
writing Chenoth, it's CHENOWITH. Apparently Welsh name. And he'd be the first to tell you who's incredibly trunky. When I was with him for his last few weeks. I felt incredibly guilty for how much work we weren't doing. You don't have a senior companion when you're a zone leader, or didn't at the time, and so. But he was the de facto senior companion. He was older. He'd been his own leader longer. So I kind of followed his lead, and we did very little. Which, I have that's not a judgment thing. You get burned out. You get burned out when you're a missionary. But I felt incredibly guilty, and I think he caught me privately praying one day. I could see I was distressed, and immediately took me out tracting. So, good fellow. But he was ready to be done. And next I had Billy Dalebout, who you've interviewed. His was the first one I listened to. He had told me about the podcast, and more than anyone else is someone who I've stayed friends with in post mission. We hung out after the mission. We went on double dates. We check in with each other now and then. I don't know what it is exactly. I think it's our shared sense of humor. I think we have a very similar sense of humor. And I went skiing with him once. I knew his now wife before he did, kind of in a random sort of way, and saw her go from dating one of my friends to dating him, and then getting married, which was fun. I won't say too much about Paisley. I guess we didn't really have many scandals in Paisley.
Do you have run-ins with the NEDs there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you've heard this story, right? The car break-in. I'm sure Billy told you about that. In fact, I remember him telling you about it. But yeah, some kid, 14-year-old, punched in the window of our Vauxhall and ran off with a box of pamphlets. Lost a shoe on the way, so we had his shoe, and we're like, we have evidence, and Hardy Boys on the case, and we contacted the police. Nothing came of it, although I'm embarrassed to say this part. This guy, as we were chasing him, ran funny. He had kind of an asymmetrical gait, so he had some kind of injury or disability or something. A couple weeks later, we're at a member's house having dinner, and one of the young men has his friends over, and one of them is walking funny with a bit of a limp, and we're like, that's him. That's the guy. That there's only one teenager with a limp in all of Paisley. And so we got really creepy, where we're like, hey, who are you? What's your name? Do you know who we are?
How many shoes do you have?
You're right. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then even the family afterwards was like, what was that about? And we were like, oh, I don't know. Just curious. Yeah, embarrassing. Man, I'm worried. I'm just I'm looking back, I'm like, wow, I was a kind of a turd at that age, between my pranks and
no,
but who isn't?
You were
We're
a
all
normal,
turds at that age.
you were a normal teenage / early 20s young man.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's right.
So another missionary I met in that area who I just kind of really liked was Laird Benyon. Love for him to get interviewed. He just struck me as someone who's going to do something really unique in life. And it was us, Laird Benyon, Billy Dalebout, me, and Jimmy Smoka, who recorded a bunch of the notorious parody songs, which you maybe encountered.
Yeah.
I was.
Which ones?
Oh, I was the lyricist on a couple of them. There was a Blister in the Sun
Yes.
parody. Okay, so I did the lyrics for that.
Nice.
And what else was there? There was the sweater song.
Oh, classic.
I helped a little. I did backup vocals and stuff.
We
Not
have a
much
few of
singer.
those on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see those. Yeah, I was hoping they had died, but here they are still.
Absolutely not. They got passed along for years into
Ugh.
the future. Come on, TR.
Man, this is not what I envisioned my legacy being as a missionary, but here we are.
I'm gonna go in and edit those videos and put you as accredited.
No, I will. I will deny it.
I'm just kidding.
I just admitted it on the video. Cut, edit this part. So yeah.
man.
Then my last area was Dundee. I was there for just 6 weeks with Jeff Marble. For a number of reasons, I'll say that weren't anyone's fault. We had days where we couldn't proselytize. And so I remember a meeting I had with Randy Wilkinson, the president for most of my mission before William Vreens came in. He said, I asked him, like, well, should I, my 2-year mark falls in the middle of a move, so I do leave the first one or the one after. And Jansen Vanderhooft, who you've interviewed, came out with at the same time as me, but he went home in the earlier moves for the academic year. And I said, this is why I would want to go home, is to, do the academic year. And he said, well, that is one of the valid reasons listed for people leaving. And also some missionaries decide that they have something more to do in the 6 weeks remaining. And either way, it's up to you. And in retrospect, he did not want to decide for me. He wanted to justify either decision for me. And because of the sort of permanently guilty frame of mind I was in the mission, I don't know if you both just always felt guilty about not being a better person. Yeah,
Definitely.
I heard that as well, you can get away with going home the first move, but we both know that the correct answer is to go home the later move. And
oh man,
I regret not going home the earlier move, because it took me so much time to find my feet after, and the last 6 weeks, just not much happened. Jeff Marble's a great fellow. I would have liked to have got to know him better. But as far as the work, there's just I don't have a lot of memories of Dundee. My parents picked me up. We did a 4-day lap around Scotland. Got to see Skye and Inverness. Got to see the West Coast, Fort William. I guess I have one more mission story before I kind of close it out. But there was a missionary, another missionary I'd love to see you interview, Kendrick Wilson Hume. Unique person, just so fun to be around and talk to. Incredibly gifted musician, professional musician now, but already was professional level musician in the mission. And he would play, I remember he'd play Called to Serve and other songs at the zone meetings, and he would embellish the heck out of them, to the point where it was completely distracting and awesome and wonderful. When I'd see they got him to play, I was like, excellent, and made these sometimes tired hymns come to life. And then he owned a piano bar in Salt Lake for a while. I don't know if he still does. So I'd sometimes go here and play. I remember once Billy Dalebout and I went to a mission reunion, noted that he wasn't there, and was like, how dare he not come? And so we went to his piano bar after and found him and harassed him a little.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I see on social media he's still performing and recording, and can only imagine how good he is now.
Was Kendrick the one that played in the Garden of Eden on the organ?
You mean like on The Simpsons?
Yeah.
I know The Simpsons episode. I don't remember. I don't remember Kendrick doing that.
I remember somebody said something about it. I don't know. I can't remember if it was Kendrick or not. But
yeah,
I'd love to hear, because somebody said someone had too many conversations now. I can't keep them all straight. Had played that song in the most epic fashion on the organ one
I have
time.
it totally sounds like him. Doesn't surprise me at all.
We'll work to get him on. I know I'm connected with him on social media as well.
Oh,
and
cool.
I've invited him, but I need to further investigate. So we'll work on it.
All right. Well, if you ever happen to listen to this episode, Kenny, you'll have me as a listener for sure if you record one.
Fantastic. Love it.
Yeah. So to sum it up, I'm not involved with the church anymore. I just decided it wasn't the right fit for me, and deciding to stop attending just felt like, you ever tried on a piece of clothing and it didn't quite fit, and you're like trying to make it work, but then you try on the one that fits, and you just know it fits, and that's kind of what it felt like for me. And so people ask, do you regret your mission? And I still don't have a good answer for that. I would do things differently. I wouldn't, I wouldn't have gone, in retrospect, if I, not being a believer, but I did get so much out of it, and I like where I am today. And if that was, part of the path, I'm very grateful for it. I wasn't a natural missionary. As I mentioned, I'm just not a spiritual person. I don't fit well in the corporate structure, in many ways, especially then I didn't. But it's good to stretch yourself. I did undergo a lot of positive changes, and I kind of feel like I've reclaimed it. And maybe recording this podcast is part of that. Reclaiming it and making it mine and what I need it to be. And I still have, it's still very much a part of me. I love Scotland. I love Britain in general, and I've gotten into Celtic music lately. I play with a Celtic music group every Monday, just in a music round. Cool. And I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but I prepared a song to play for you if you like. I don't think it happens. I'm no Kendrick Wilson Hume, or Kendrick Zane, I think is his professional name. But yeah, do you want to hear it?
Absolutely, we do.
All right. It's a little rough, and I got you to agree to it before telling you that I play accordion. So that was intentional. I don't know if you'd have answered yes if you knew it was accordion.
Love it.
And if it doesn't go well, just cut this part. And
I'm gonna go on mute so that we get the best audio we can from your microphone. Oh, come on, the tramps and bobber lads and gatherers abroad, that tramp the country round and round, come listen one and all. I'll tell to you of until a place as I have been, far up into the stormy north and south, like red green. I have seen the high and never that is down Taylor. I've been round by Crieff and Callender and by Bonnie too. I have seen the Netties, Silver Tide and places I'll take head. Far up into the stormy north lies Orthodox Fairly Glen.
That was
That was
excellent.
great. That was
Thanks.
great. Do you want to do the tin whistle?
I can do a different song on Tin Whistle if you want.
Sure, do it.
Yeah.
All right.
That was excellent. I love it.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Well, TR, it's been wonderful having you come on. I really appreciate the sentiments you've shared about, even though you've stepped away from the church as such, you still value the experience that the mission played a part in your life. And that's true for all of us. We've tried to stress to people like, you're welcome to come on the podcast and share your experiences, because ultimately it's a shared experience for all of us in that land. And there's a piece of our heart that's there. And part of this is therapeutic for us
Oh
too.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and I like to thank you as well. I took the final step to adulthood a year ago and moved all of my crap out of my mom's house and have no more stuff at my mom's house. And that including that last batch was all my mission stuff. And I brought it home and I haven't really looked at it. And then I read through my journal, read through my testimony book, and looked at some of my letters to the mission president, which you get all your letters to the mission president at the end. Read some letters from home, and what a great thing to do on the close to the 21-year anniversary, and first time I've really done it. So, and it's because of your invitation. So thanks very much. I really appreciate it.
well, that's great.
Yeah,
That's great. And we want to express our love for you as our brother in Scotland. There's a bond there that we don't share with really very many people, but it's a special group, those who do have that shared experience.
Absolutely. And interestingly, I at the place I work now, I have a colleague who also was a missionary in Scotland 10 years before me. So wow. That's Paul Moulton. If you want to, I don't know how far back you go. How far back do you go?
As early as people want to come on. I mean, we're trying to
all
get
right.
President Wilkinson, and he served in the 60s. So
yeah, well,
right.
and my dad.
Yeah,
I'll ask him. I'd love to hear him on the podcast because he hasn't kept a journal. I record him. I interview him and record him once in a while, just to, you don't have your parents with you forever, and I'd love to preserve that as well. And I, think I'd hear some new things if he were to come on the podcast. So
yeah, anybody you want to send our way, they 51spylaw.com. You can fill out a contact form. That's for anybody who's listening too. Please search us out. We try to find as many people as we can, and we love referrals as well. So
yeah, any of
send them our way.
Your past companions that you either have not been in contact with or are in contact, or friends from the mission, send them to us. We'd love to have them come on, and ultimately the first step is them listening to your experience and sharing that with them, and then hopefully that will spur them on to do the same.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we'll say goodnight to you, TR. Thank you again for your time. It doesn't happen without you, but we'll give you a cheerio and we'll talk more soon, okay?
All right. My pleasure.
Thanks.
Cheerio, mate. Bye.
Bye.